They say cursed objects don't just disappear. They get passed along. A dark inheritance moving from hand to hand, leaving a trail of broken lives in its wake. But what happens when the hand that takes it is waiting? What happens when the victim is a hunter? Welcome to the final episode of The Plush Curse, The Collector. October 2023. Mara wasn't like the others. She wasn't a terrified college student or a pragmatic auction buyer who stumbled into a nightmare. She was a hunter, a private collector of what she called dark artifacts. Her house wasn't a home, it was a meticulously curated museum of nightmares, a private library of fear. On shelves of reinforced glass sat rows of antique Ouija boards. There were paintings that people swore made them physically sick to look at, their colors seeming to shift when you weren't paying attention. In one corner stood a vintage telephone that would sometimes ring in the dead of night, with only roaring, angry static on the other end. And in the main hall, a legion of antique dolls with human hair stitched into their scalps stared out from their climate-controlled cases. Everything was tagged, catalogued, and locked away. Mara believed in control. She believed that horror, like any other specimen, could be contained, studied, and understood. She had been tracking the whispers of the Plush Curse for months, following the digital breadcrumbs of terror left across the internet. A panicked forum post from a college student who dropped out. A garbled police report about a vanished auction buyer named Derek. It all led back to one place, Storage Unit 137. When it came up for auction again, she didn't bid. She contacted the seller directly and paid double the asking price. She wasn't there to flip it. She was there to claim the prize. She found it in the corner of the empty, swept-clean unit. It was perched neatly on a simple wooden chair, as if it had been left there just for her. As if it were waiting. The plush toy, the vacant black eyes, the crude patch over its heart. And stitched across its chest in raw, red thread were the numbers, 137. Mara didn't flinch. She approached it with the cold precision of a scientist. She pulled on a pair of thick leather gloves, carefully placed the bear into a padded transport case, and drove it back to her museum. There, she placed it in its own brand-new, airtight glass enclosure in the center of her main collection room. She printed a label from her computer and affixed it to the front. Object number 44, the Plush Curse. The specimen had been acquired, but this toy didn't behave like the others. The artifacts in her collection were dormant, their malevolence contained. This one was active. The first night, the lights in her house began to flicker and die one by one, plunging entire sections of the museum into darkness. Her state-of-the-art security cameras would fizzle into static whenever they were pointed at object number 44. Small things would be rearranged when her back was turned. A scalpel on her desk moved an inch to the left. A book on a shelf now lying on the floor. And every single night, at exactly 1:37 a.m., the plush bear was no longer in its case. The sealed enclosure would be unlocked, the door slightly ajar, and the bear would be gone. She'd find it somewhere else in the house, a silent, menacing game of hide and seek. Once, on the kitchen counter, next to the knife block. Another time, in the long, dark hallway, sitting just beyond the reach of the light. And once, in the ultimate act of violation, at the foot of her bed, its single, glassy eye reflecting the moonlight. Mara wasn't afraid. She was fascinated. She recorded everything, her cameras rolling 24/7. She was documenting the curse, controlling it, she thought. She was winning. Until she reviewed the tapes and saw something her own eyes had never witnessed. The toy was moving. It wasn't being dragged by an unseen force or thrown by a poltergeist. The footage showed it, clear as day. It would twitch, stir, and then climb down from whatever surface it was on. Its small, fuzzy legs, stiff and unnatural, would carry it in a slow, shuffling walk across the floor. By week 2, the true horror began. It was like the plush toy was a conductor, and her entire collection was its orchestra. It started as a low hum, then a single discordant note from a music box in the East Wing. It was answered by another off-key lullaby from the West Wing. Soon the entire house was filled with a symphony of madness. The glass eyes of 100 dolls all turned in unison to track her as she walked down the hall. Whispers coiled from the Ouija boards, not in English, but in a guttural language that made her ears bleed. The paintings didn't just make her feel sick anymore, they began to weep a thick, black, tar-like substance that smelled of rot. The bear wasn't just another artifact, it was an amplifier. It was infecting them. Her control was broken. Panicked, she tried to seal it in a crate filled with concrete. She burned bundles of sage until the house was thick with smoke. She even fled the house for 3 nights straight, hoping its influence would die without a person to torment. But when she returned, the front door was unlocked. The air was silent. Every artifact in her home was smashed. Every glass case was shattered, the floor a glittering sea of broken shards. Her entire collection, her life's work, was destroyed. Gone. Only the plush bear remained. It was sitting in the very center of the ruined room, on the splintered remains of a wooden chair. And stitched across its chest now wasn't just 137. There was a new word stitched in that same coarse black thread. A name. Mara. The final security tape, recovered later by police, is mostly static. But in the last few seconds, the audio clears. The camera is on the floor, pointing at the ceiling. We can't see Mara, but we can hear her. A choked, terrified whisper, her voice trembling with a horrifying realization.
The teddy bear is not an object. The plush teddy bear is a collector too.
Mara vanished 2 days later. Her house was found empty by authorities. Glass everywhere. The strange, black substance dripping down the walls. Every artifact, every doll, every cursed piece of her collection. Gone. All except one. A single plush toy sitting alone in a sterile, numbered police evidence locker. Its curse contained for now. Waiting for the next hand to touch it. The next door to open. And waiting to add someone new to its collection. If you survived tonight's story, the best way to support our channel is to subscribe and ring that notification button, so the nightmares know where to find you next. Thanks for watching.